You've selected a show from the Podcast Jukebox, a DIY podcast network.
It's Will Shawn Podcast. The internet cried out for two more blowhards, and they courageously answered that call. Armed with the weapon of wit, each week they're joined by guests to discuss movies, television, pop culture, and anything else that's pissing them off. Take it away, boys.
I'm Will Link.
And I'm Sean David.
And this is Will Shawn Podcast.
For one last time in another garbage year. How you doing, Will?
So I just came back from New York.
You did? You've been gone. I haven't seen you in like a month.
I've been years in Manhattan. No, I just came back and I can't deal with like airplanes.
Okay.
Like I like being somewhere different, or in this case, the same.
Yeah.
But I hate every single person I've ever sat next to on an airplane, unless it's somebody I knew, I guess.
Okay, and even then it's 50-50.
Yeah, then I don't know. There was this guy sitting next to me on a plane.
Was this on the way there?
It was on the way back.
Okay.
And first of all, this is going to turn into a longer story than I anticipated. There was a little tiny Mexican woman sitting by the window seat, and I had the aisle seat. And this guy comes, and first of all, he's like, "What row am I? Where's row 7? Where's row 7?" He's saying it really loudly. And he's like a young guy, like some millennial motherfucker, hipster douchebag. He's like, "Where's row 7?"
Would he have beanie and a scarf?
There's a 6, 7, 8. Like, and finally I go, "You skipped it. It's over here, row 7." He comes over, and he's looking for a very long time. And people are trying to sit down. He's standing there looking for a very long time. And he's like, "I don't know what seat I am." And I'm like, looking at his thing. I said, "You're the window seat." I said, "F." And he goes, "She's in the window seat." I said, "She's in the wrong seat." And the woman pretended not to be able to speak English and showed her ticket. She had the middle seat. And he didn't know. He's like, "What do I do?" And I'm looking, I'm like, what why are you asking me?
You look at me, you call your mother.
And then she got the window seat.
You didn't say to him, "You sit in the middle and you like it because it's a miracle we can fly at all."
I wish she had actually moved to the middle, because he ended up being like, "I'll just sit here," because he sat down, and I've heard people talk about like man spreading or whatever, but I didn't really understand what that was. Now I do, because his legs were stretched out.
Was this a tall man?
Taller than me.
Okay.
And he's got, and then his arm was like on the remote.
He took both.
But it was on the remote. I need to change the channel, so I kept like pushing his arm off of it so I could change the channel. He kept saying, "Sorry, bro." And then he didn't understand. He's like, "Where do I plug my phone charger?" And he's asking me. I go, "I don't think there's a thing to plug your phone charger into." He's like, "What?" And then the stewardess, flight attendant, whatever, they walk by, and he goes, "Where do I plug this into?" She goes, "We don't have that." And he was like, "What?" And then he's like, "I'm hungry." He's like saying it like he was a child. He's like, he says like, "I'm hungry. Is there food?" She's like, "Yeah, there's a menu in there." And he pulls out the menu, and he goes, "I don't see it. I don't see the menu." And she's like, "It's in your hand." And he opened it up and goes, "Oh." And then he like, "I'll have this chicken sandwich." And then even when the flight was over, and then he goes, "Do you mind if I take a few hits off my e-cigarette?" And I'm like, I don't care. Whatever.
You could smoke those on planes?
Probably not.
No, you're specifically not allowed.
Was it nicotine or weed?
I have no idea.
Did it smell like he was high though afterwards? Or?
No.
Okay.
But then he was like, "Where do I get my bags?" He's asking me. I'm like, "You go to the carousel." "Where is it?" "It's at Burbank. There's one carousel."
I miss the good old days when you could bring a taser onto a plane.
This man, has he ever flown before? Like,
I don't know.
My God.
And he was like a hipster guy.
My 11-year-old niece flew cross country by herself, and she was better off than this guy.
Like, he didn't look socially awkward. Like, he was kind of like, he wasn't a bad looking guy. He was this young guy. And I don't know. He was like, I hated him so much. I miss the days that I never lived through, where you had to wear a fucking suit to get on a plane.
Yeah, and you could molest the stewardess.
I didn't ask for that. I didn't know that. So, Sean, what's going on in the world of Will Sean Podcast?
Well, glad that you're back, that the band is back together again. I know that our output's been erratic, and it's just been because, listen, people, we've been doing this for years. We've given you plenty of free shit. Sometimes life gets in the way. So we're doing the best we can.
I think January is about to be erratic again, too.
Well, you know what? You get what you get. All right? I don't want to hear it from you anymore. That being said, we want to thank everyone at the Jukebox Podcast Network. They've been wonderful partners. We love everything they do. Please make sure you like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter. And I want to give a very special congratulations to little Helen McGillnick for just being born. May your face not launch 1,000 ships.
Yay!
Oh, there
From
you go.
the daughter of guest of the podcast.
Okay, it took me a second, but I figured
guest
it out.
of the podcast.
I figured it out before you reminded me,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah, so Nate had a
congrats.
baby, so congrats.
On life, new life.
Yep.
Into this miserable world. And who's our sponsor this week?
The Last Jedi Film Filter. For those of you who are too triggered by Kylo's entitlement, Rey's disappointing origin story, or the presence of not one, but two female military commanders, Breitbart Media Group is here for you. Wearing a specially designed set of filtered glasses and a small earpiece, the picture and sound will be automatically tuned out during any scenes that might intentionally or unintentionally ruin your enjoyment of the film. Don't let those SJW cucks destroy the Star Wars that you know to be the right version. In a galaxy far, far away, only real men use lightsabers.
Real white men.
That's a given, Will.
On the show this week, man, 2017 was a garbage year, but maybe there's hope. Maybe there was some good things that happened this year. We'll try to
All it takes is a spark of hope.
accentuate the positive. Speaking of things I found to be good this year, Star Wars. It's been out a couple weeks now, so we're gonna
ruin it.
We're gonna ruin it for those who haven't seen it. We're gonna get into it. And
A deep dive or a shallow dive?
is there anything in between that?
A medium-sized dive.
Yes. Then that's probably the most accurate. And I already said 2017 was a terrible year. And you know what? It was a fucking self-fulfilling prophecy. I've only got myself to blame for this. We will discuss. But first, you have heard him on the show.
Because he's one of the few that's allowed to pipe in during the top of the show.
I was going to say, you've heard him interrupting in the beginning, but I'm glad he did. I expected him to. Because he is not just a returning champion. He is our greatest returning champion. What is this, the 6th time you've been on?
I think so. It's either 5 or 6.
Either way, you don't get a jacket.
I was going to
And
say.
Steve Martin is not in the other room, nor is Alec Baldwin.
Damn.
Alex Stein.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back here. It's sort of an end-of-the-year tradition now.
Yeah, you come and we talk about how terrible the year was. And,
And we drink some delicious seasonal beer and
tell
Timber cookies.
Tell the people what you have brought for us.
So I brought some Anchor Christmas beer 2017. Anchor Brewery up in San Francisco has been doing a seasonal brew every year for the past 43 years. Every year it's a different recipe. This year it's a bit of a dark beer. It tastes like it's maybe not quite a stout, but like a porter base with some seasonal spices, and it's very nice.
It's very nice. It's a good,
I'm not even a big beer guy, but I am enjoying this.
Yes.
Go well
So-
with a roaring fire, which I do not possess.
Well, we could say you do.
Have you been here since I built the library? I'll show you after we record.
Yeah, let's not take a
Hold on, everyone. Please hold. If you want, you can fast forward about 7 minutes.
Also, you brought cookies, Christmas cookies, which are delicious.
I did, and they're
On
especially
sale.
good because they were on sale for, I don't know what they were, 79 cents, 99 cents?
You know what? The
I
holiday
spare
is
no
over.
expense.
I'm still pissed that people have their Christmas lights up. Let's go. Take them down.
Okay.
28th.
You
Bullshit.
take them down on New Year's Day.
What? What is this?
That's what my family always did.
Now, what if you're Greek Orthodox? Keep up till January 6th.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I am enjoying these cookies and this beer. So, while I continue to enjoy it, why don't you tell us what you've been up to in the past year?
Okay, so among other things, I have launched a podcast, which Will was nice enough to be a guest on, and in fact was the first guest that the first guest that I taped, although your episode was, I think, 4th or 5th.
It's like when they film the TV shows out of order, and it's like, this was the pilot, but then it's the second episode.
And then they're like, why is Will played by Becky?
Yeah, it's confusing. Well, the podcast is called Tell Me Who You Are.
Right. And the idea of the podcast is I talk every week to someone different from a diverse background about the things that are most important to them. And every week, the first question is the same, which is, let's start with the simple things. What's the meaning of life? Which when I first started doing it, I thought, oh, that's funny. That's like a joke. Nobody will actually have an answer to that. But pretty much everyone has. So I think that's
I don't think I would have an answer for it.
I think you would.
I don't know.
What's the meaning of life, Sean?
I don't know. Okay. Right now, it's cookies, beer, and podcasting.
Yeah, that's good enough for me.
But you know what? Does it get better than that? I mean,
Yes.
shouldn't we just enjoy the simple pleasures?
They're pretty much all we have left.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Voltaire.
So I launched that after going to a podcasting convention called Podcast Movement in Anaheim in August.
Now, did you go to this convention with the idea of I might want to start a podcast, or did you go just out of curiosity and were so inspired by all the podcasters? Because this is a very inspiring field.
A little of both. For the past 5 years, I've been co-hosting an Iditarod podcast that is every other week during the off season and then daily during the Iditarod sled dog race. And my partner in that, who's a really amazing guy named Robert Forto, called me up and said, hey, there's this convention. I think we should go to it. And I looked it up online, and it was more money than I wanted to spend. And I thought, I don't want to do that. That's too much money. And then I talked to a couple of people, and they said, no, I think you should really go. And I went. It was very, very inspiring. I went to a whole bunch of panels. I met a ton of people. I got a really very broad view of the podcasting industry, which is in an amazing growth period right now. I got to understand that there are a lot of financial podcasts that all seem to be leveraged around getting people to sign up for web courses that teach you how to get other people to sign up for web courses.
How to get that sweet stamps.com money too.
Yeah, exactly. And more importantly, I learned that the Iditarod podcast that I do, we've been averaging about 12 to 1,500 downloads per episode.
Because it's very niche. Like it's almost like going more. I feel like our problem is we're too broad based.
Yeah.
We're too general.
Yeah.
I know, like, we have consistent numbers, but we're not like
We're not breaking through.
Our friends that, like, off the cuffs, because they're all talking about BDSM stuff, they get everyone who's into BDSM. You're talking about Iditarod, you get everyone who's into the Iditarod.
Right. But what I discovered is the average podcast episode has, I believe the number is 120 downloads. So if you have more than 120 downloads per episode, you are in the top 50%. And if you have more than 1,200, you're in like the top 5 or maybe the top 3%.
You're Mark Maron over here.
Yeah, and you know, that's considering that there's everything like Serial and This American Life that have millions and millions of downloads. So I discovered that our Iditarod podcast that we've been doing for a while is actually a very, very popular podcast. And we went there with the thought of doing some things better and learning how to get more audience and how to monetize it and all sorts of things like that. And we learned a whole bunch of stuff that we've put into practice in the past few months. But while I was there, I started thinking, oh, I want to do something more in this medium. And I was trying to figure out exactly what that was. And I had a couple of ideas. And this Tell Me Who You Are idea came out of the fact that I noticed and was saying to people that when I talk to people, they tell me their deepest, darkest secrets. Sometimes when I first met them, and sometimes when it's stuff I really don't want to know. But people are always telling me their secrets. And I thought, well, maybe I could figure out a way to, not tell people, come on my podcast and spill your secrets and then I'll embarrass you. But maybe I could find out a way to talk to people about the things that are really important to them. And so that's what this is. We've done 13 episodes. It's building nicely. So
Nice.
it's now above the average of what all podcasts get, and I'm very happy with it.
Excellent. And so it's good you see like it like you said, it's building and building. Like, how are you finding these listeners, or how are these listeners finding you? Is it a lot of people that follow you over from the Iditarod thing to see what you're doing? Is it people from the storytelling scene here? Like, how are you getting the word out about Tell Me Who You Are?
It's at the moment I'm doing it just on a very grassroots level. So I'm having all of the guests publicize it. I'm trying to get guests who have more of a following, in addition to just getting guests who fascinate me and who I want to know more about. And it, up until this point, has mostly been people that I already know. Although some of them are people that...
What's that like?
Although some of them are people that I just know through Facebook. But I've done... I interviewed this woman who is from South Africa, who's now living in Australia, who, when she moved to Australia, she discovered that she had a brain tumor, so she's waiting for brain surgery, and she was talking all about what that experience has been like. I've talked to a bunch of people from the storytelling community who are usually very verbal and fascinating and obsessed with weird things, which are always fun to talk about. And a couple of my friends that I know from various online communities, including someone I know from an old political community that started in 2008, an online political community, who I've known for almost 10 years but had never spoken to.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. Back in the bulletin board days, alt.right.left.
It was actually, it was an offshoot of a political blog called The Mudflats.
Okay.
And in 2008, when John McCain nominated Sarah Palin to be vice president, I did what apparently tens of thousands of other people did, which is Google Alaska progressive blogs.
Okay.
And because I wanted to see what the people of Alaska thought about Sarah Palin. I was familiar with her, but I didn't have the boots on the ground knowledge of her. And she was actually the only vice presidential candidate that I thought might help John McCain, until I heard her speak, and then I realized, oh wait, she's an idiot.
What would you do if you found out that Sarah Palin or one of the Palin-ettes is an avid listener to the Iditarod podcast? Because that is their backyard.
You know, when I did my Iditarod movie Mush,
Yeah.
I was in the same place with Sarah Palin a bunch of times, and I managed to avoid having to speak with her because I knew if I interviewed her, I would have to put it in the movie, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But at this point, since it's far enough in the past, I would totally interview any Palin who comes forward.
Even the
Maybe.
wife beater?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, maybe you could
Well,
get
you'll have to
track
be
on
more
it.
specific, first of all.
Yeah.
Well, track.
Track.
Oh,
Good old
track,
track. Track Palin.
It's a strong, it's a man's name.
Yeah.
What if your name had been Track Link?
Track Link.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, maybe if I have a son.
You'd be some sort of
I would-
vigilante in an 80s movie.
I'm amazed they don't have a kid named Trivet. Don't you think Trivet Palin?
So, I mean, you said like the storytelling people clearly
Just talk.
just talk. So, have you had any trouble getting people to open up at all? I mean, are there been people sit there and like, I mean, how do you get people to talk? But it sounds like it's pretty easy.
I haven't had trouble yet. Partially, it's that I just ask people about things they're interested in, and people love talking about things they're interested in.
Well, don't, a little word of advice from people who've been doing this for a long time. Don't get musicians on your show. Well, the
Yeah.
problem is that you can talk to them about music.
Right.
But just in general.
You would think I almost named the musicians, but we had a
bass player.
we had
No,
a
band.
band on.
Oh.
These two guys from this band, which I guess was like 3 people in it, but 2 of them, I don't know. It was a giant pain in the ass because we had to drive to some house because they didn't know where the fuck we were. And the thing is, this band is actually kind of blown up. They've gone on some big tours now. So we interviewed them, and it was...
They had just gotten off the road from South by
Yeah.
Southwest, and they were crashing in an empty house in East Los Angeles that someone like was a friend of a friend and literally just gave him the key. So we walk in this house, just has furniture covered with sheets and boxes everywhere, and they're crashing on like cots in the corner.
And I remember asking him like on the podcast, I go, so you just came from South by Southwest? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you drove up here. You must have some crazy stories being on the road. And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, do you want to tell us one of them?
I want to re-listen to that episode. I'm going to dig it up.
And then they...
Was it stuff like, what was it like being at South by Southwest? And they'd say, it's in Texas.
They weren't that dumb. We weren't dealing with Spinal Tap. It was just... They were tired. They were nervous. They didn't know what to say. They were... I don't even know. It was like pulling teeth.
We've had a few of those.
Yeah.
Part of the thing is that my podcast, I aim to have the episodes be around 30 minutes.
Right.
And some of them are a little bit...
You really edit.
Yes.
We do not.
Right. And you may recall, your interview was almost 2 hours long.
I could tell.
It was long.
Yeah. And I interviewed it, and I've gotten a little bit better, but the first few episodes, I was really adamant that there shouldn't be a lot of silence. And whenever someone said, I would try to edit it out.
Yeah, I used to do that too.
And I found out that, wow, that takes a million years to do.
Uh-huh.
And not only that, but one of the people who was one of the early guests said, you edited that really close. It sounds like I never take a breath. And I was like, oh yeah. And at the time I was using Audacity, editor, which I've since stopped because, it's
terrible.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful in certain respects, but it's terrible in a lot of other respects. But it's what they call, this is a little bit too geeky, so I'll stop after this one sentence. It's what they call a destructive editor. So if you do an edit, you can't really go back and undo it and fix it. You can either undo it totally, but only one, or you cannot. So my friend said, well, can you change this so that it feels like I'm breathing? And I said, I could, but it would require that I redo every one of the 2,700 edits that I did.
So the one trick that I found, because I edit podcast, is there's an exceptionally long pause.
Right.
I'll just mark that down. Mm-hmm. Or if there's a long or something like that. And then also you get very good at seeing it visually on it. So I can kind of scrub through it. And I'm like, oh, what's that? I can see these weird spikes and I can see the flat spots. And then, and then I still nip and tuck a little bit, but I don't spend that too much time on it because if you mess with it too much, it does sound unnatural.
You know what's interesting? Because I found, and I think this was true for us, and it sounds like it's true for you too, that a lot of people, when they want to start a podcast, I think they start to try to plan it to death.
Right.
And they try to be like, well, we want to come out with a perfect product.
Right.
And that's not going to happen unless you're getting it produced by maybe Slate or something.
Or somewhere where you have an actual audio producer who's
but you have to just, be willing to go out there and have the first couple episodes maybe be rough, maybe be like that. What you were just saying.
Where it sounds like robot voice, where everyone talks just like this and they don't take any breaths between their statements.
The best piece of advice that I got from the podcast movement convention was someone said, when you're launching a podcast, you should first record 5 episodes before you release any of them. That way, you have a chance. If you want to, you can scrap some of them. And by the time you get to the 4th or 5th one, you'll have a much better idea of what works and what doesn't work, both in terms of content and production. Yeah. So I did that, and it turned out that there were a few things that I thought, this would be great, I'm going to do this every time, and they just didn't work at all. Yeah. And then there were other things I discovered, I think I had a list of 40 questions for you. Yeah. And now I have 4 or 5 questions that I will sometimes ask, but usually I find that if I ask the first question and then listen, that tells me where to go.
You go down you follow it down a rabbit hole then.
Yeah. And because I'm editing, I can always go and pull it back to where it gets back on track.
The lesson that we also learned, it took us a little while, is that for people that aren't naturally used to just speaking, so storytellers or comedians,
right.
We couldn't just sit them down and go, okay, we're recording now. So we will deliberately have them just sit at the table and we just chat with the microphones in front of their face. Mm-hmm. And we're not recording anything. And we just do that for 10 to 15 minutes because at that point, it's almost like the camera crew in a documentary.
Right.
They start to forget the mic's there and they start to warm up because so many times the first 20 minutes would be tough, and then by the end of it, they go, "Oh, that was fun. It took me. I settled in."
They loosened up.
Yeah. So by just kind of making them forget about the microphones a little bit, and we do that deliberately, and it's just been very helpful, especially for someone that's not a professional talker.
Yeah.
Have there been a lot of surprises for you with the people you've talked to, like things that you did not like? A lot of like, oh, I did not expect that from this person.
You went to some dark places, Will.
Yes. Almost everyone has told me things I didn't know about them. And almost everyone has wound up telling me something and then said some variation on, I've never told anyone that before.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know there was something in my episode where I'm like, oh, wow, like, I hadn't thought about that. Like, there was something, and it wasn't that I was keeping secret from it, but it was something that either I had forgotten or...
No one forced you to articulate before.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh.
New financial model for you. Forget about advertisers. You charge your guests afterwards for the session, and they owe you $100.
Blackmail, yeah.
No, for the therapy.
Yeah. So I'm doing that, and I'm very excited about it. And I've had a year and a half of not producing a live storytelling show, and I'm going to launch a new storytelling show next year. Now, I may have said this last year at this time, but I was very tired in 2017.
Give us back the jacket.
Yeah, exactly.
There are plenty of projects I keep saying I am going to start, and then I realize I'm too tired right now, and I probably will get to them eventually, so I cannot
you'll be dead.
Hold this against you. But when you do have that storytelling show, let us know, because we will be there.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
So who's coming up on Tell Me Who You Are? Like, could you have some episodes in the can that you're waiting to release, or?
I have one episode in the can. Who's somebody that actually came to me and said, "Can I be on your podcast?" And I said, "Sure." And we had a very interesting conversation, and I've forgotten his name, so that's because I'm a bad host. And I have this one interview that's been rescheduled a bunch of times that was actually supposed to be this afternoon, and then just got rescheduled again. So I'm hoping that will happen within the next week or so. And
don't feel bad about forgetting the guests' names. We've had guests on who I sat with and talked with and looked at them and edited their episode and spent 2 hours with them, and then I'll see them at some event 3 weeks later, and we'll be like, "Who is that?" It's like, so and so. We just had them on the podcast.
But I've done the same thing. I've had people come up to me and be like, "Oh, hey, Will," and I'm like, have to fake knowing who they are, and then eventually they'll mention something about the podcast. I'm like, oh, that's who that was.
Right.
So,
well, at least you don't say to them, "Hey, you should be on our podcast sometime," and then they say, "I was just on it 2 weeks ago."
So, Alex, tell the people where they can find Tell Me Who You Are.
They can find it on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Podcasty, or anywhere they get their damn podcasts.
Yeah. Who's these people streaming podcasts, by the way? Who has so much free data on their plans?
Yeah. I don't understand. So just search for Tell Me Who You Are, or go to tellmewhoyouarepodcast.com.
Excellent. And if you are a good listener of the podcast, you have already subscribed on iTunes, because we will have a link to it on our Facebook
And listen,
page.
these are half-hour episodes. You can get it, you put it at 1.5 speed, you take a decent shit, you listen to it. It's a good, it'll get you through those movements.
I'm going to put that on the website now.
So, speaking of shits.
Segue.
Man, 2017 was a shit year. Like, we thought 2016 was bad.
I'm going to push on this, but let's...
To be fair, we knew last year it was going to be this bad. I think we were secretly hoping it wouldn't, but we really knew.
Right. Was it a shit year? Because 2016 was a shit year because it ended with a kick. Was 2017 just kind of it wasn't good, but was it unexpected?
Well, we're talking
I think it was worse than we thought it was going to be.
I think it was worse than we thought it was going to be, too.
Okay.
But less people we admired died.
But the rest of them are rapists. So
we're going to get to that. We'll get to that later. But, look, the other day, Taylor Swift posted something like, 2017 was great.
Yeah.
And the internet went crazy shitting on her, which I thought was very unfair because, she had a good year. Yeah. Maybe she had a good year personally.
She's a secret Trump voter?
And do you think so?
I don't think she voted.
Okay, I'd rather that than her be a secret Trump voter.
Let me get another cookie. Or half a cookie. Give me that stump.
You want this cookie stump?
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw your
That's
roll
okay.
there we go.
But she, what the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah, no, but
she had a good year.
Some people had good years. Some people had personally good years. The world is shit, but Alex, did you have a good year?
It was mixed. There were some definite, really, really great things about it. And I feel like I've ended on a positive note this year. So I feel so much more hopeful for 2018 than I did for 2017. And part of the reason, I think, is that we have crystallized exactly what's at stake, which is the future of democracy.
But is democracy that good?
Let's vote on it.
Alex, what is the meaning of democracy to you?
Are we like in a bubble about all this though? Like, is most of America actually not worried about democracy? And I mean that not in terms of like the idea of democracy, but in terms of
like
they think
everything's gonna be okay,
fine.
or things will be fine for them.
They're not like.
I don't think they think that everything's fine, but I don't think they realize how bad it's gotten. And I think that what we're dealing with here is a small group of people who are very evil have declared war on the truth. And when you declare war on the truth, it's hard to do a lot of things. It's hard to have conversations because people just don't believe anything. I've had conversations with certain people online where they say, you say things like, well, there was this article in this newspaper, and they're like, oh, it's in a newspaper, so it's a lie.
Must have been talking to my family.
Yeah.
Sean, is there something like, what do you take positive from this year? What did you take
from this year?
Yeah, like what is something culturally positive?
Fewer people died. So that's a good one.
I mean, I thought it was a great year for film.
It was.
We'll get into that big time next week.
Yes, it was a good time for film. But once again, a lot of these films were already kind of predated this era, with the exception of The Post, which kind of sprung into existence within like 5 months. I think art, for a time, we still need another year or two for this to shake out. I think much of what came out this year was still sort of in the works prior to all this. The problem is that Trump and the political scene has overpowered everything, so that there's no way to say, like, what good came out of this year. Everything is married to the political situation and to this crisis that's going on, so you can't separate the two of them. So, things that gave me hope, it all kind of comes back to the political vectors. So, the elections in Virginia and Alabama recently, the engagement that I see with people. The one thing, something that gave me a lot of hope and also provided me with a lot of entertainment and cultural enjoyment is the Pod Save America, Crooked Media, and what those guys are doing over there with their podcast. And they found a way to take something which is an entertaining medium and marry it to the idea of activism and just getting your butt off the couch and doing something. Where it's not enough, you just can't come to the live shows and you can't just... So, for example, they did a live show in Virginia the weekend before the elections, and they went around into the audience. It was like 3,000 people in this auditorium, and one of the segments was they went and they stuck the microphone in people's faces and said, what are you doing this weekend for the election? What are you doing this weekend? It's not enough that you just show up to the show and laugh at the jokes and pay the money. It's like you need to get involved. And I hope to see more of that coming down the pike. And, we got midterms coming up this year, and that could change the tide in a lot of very influential ways. But you still have, these crooked billionaires that own all the media companies. So
right,
it's a lot of headwinds.
Another thing that happened this year that I take a tremendous amount of pleasure in is Sean David lookalike Frank Turner, who
he has more tattoos than I do.
Yes, slightly more. Who I think is a phenomenal example of an artist who's using his art form to further openness and to try to make really positive political changes.
Do you know what his background is? You know what his story is?
Yeah, he was a punk singer in this like thrash
No,
metal
before that,
group.
what his actual like family history is.
Oh yeah, he was like a
His grandfather is like a knighted who was the his grandfather is this rock singer from England. His grandfather was like the head of all city group for Europe. Sir something or other, and he went to Eton with Prince William. Like he went to all the like best schools in England and had like the finest upbringing that a little British boy could have. And he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna be a rock star.
I don't know if I told you this story, but I did a storytelling show at some venue, and I was talking to this woman afterwards, and we were just talking about music, and I think her boyfriend was British or something, and I mentioned that I've just recently gotten really into Frank Turner and how much I love Frank Turner, and she goes, "Oh my God, I went to this show in Santa Barbara like 3 or 4 years ago that he did, and there was nobody at the show, and he was there, and I was underage, and I snuck in, and afterwards I was talking to him, and I told him how great it was, and he like bought me a club soda and talked to me for a half hour, and I was like, this is what I want more of. People whose heroes talk to them for a half hour and buy them club sodas if they're underage."
Yeah.
So there's some. Okay, what else? What about you, Will? What do you have to look forward to in 2018?
Nothing.
Really?
I don't know. You would pose this to be a topic, and immediately I have a lot of trouble thinking of stuff because I'm kind of. I mean, I listen to a lot of political podcasts, and but
you watch too much television news, though.
I think that's the thing.
You watch
You're
too
right.
much cable news.
I watch a lot of MSNBC, and I feel like I don't get any. It's not like I'm getting any joy out of it. I mean, I must on some level get some cathartic.
I try to
feeling.
limit myself to about 10 to 15 minutes at
I
a
can't
time.
even do that. Like
You can't watch like Maddow or something.
Well, first of all, I'm not as huge a Maddow fan as most people. I like Chris Hayes. I like Lawrence O'Donnell. I love Joy Reid. I think Joy Reid is like a superstar.
And I think her weekend show, Am Joy, that's some of my favorite stuff. I like that when I wake up on a Saturday morning, because I usually wake up sometime in the 7 o'clock hour. I turn on the TV, and she's right in the middle of something.
Right.
Yeah.
But I refer to it as Schadenfreude TV because that's really what it is.
I mean, even at night, and I've talked about this before, I don't watch, like, I don't watch a lot of them more, and they're all very political now, it seems. But at night, I watch Conan.
Yeah.
And he makes a bunch of jokes about Trump, but it's a much sillier show.
like the way
than
Leno would
even,
make
like,
jokes about like Bill Clinton.
Right.
Yeah, although you could tell, like, they're meaner about Trump than they ever been about any of these people.
Right, but even like Colbert and Seth Meyers especially.
Well, they're taking big political stances.
Yes.
But I kind of like that.
I can't figure out what Samantha Bee falls out though.
What do you mean?
Just kidding.
Oh, sorry. The point is, I don't know. Like I said, there was a lot of film that inspired me this year, more so than the year before.
You had your new Kendrick Lamar and Jay-Z album to listen to.
I went on a trip.
Yeah? You left the country.
I left the country.
Yeah.
When the going gets tough, I leave the country.
But now you've done it, I think you need to start planning for next year. You got to go somewhere else.
I want to.
Speaking of leaving the country, I was just recently in Germany for the wedding of my cousin. And when I came back in, I always panic around, not panic, but I always get worried around border control.
Okay.
Not because I'm doing anything particularly wrong, but I always feel like they're going to single me out.
I'm with you.
So one of my other cousins gave me some homemade fruit liqueur to bring back with me, which I put in my checked luggage. But I'm not sure how much of this is legal to bring in. So I'm getting ready to go through passport control, and I'm starting to panic because I'm thinking they're going to discover the fruit liqueur. I'm going to be busted for the fruit liqueur that I'm bringing back.
The dogs are sniffing at you.
And the guy who stamps my passport looks at it and he says, "Where were you?" And I said, "Germany." And he said, "Was it business or pleasure?" And I said, "It was pleasure. I was there for my cousin's wedding." And I'm thinking to myself, fruit liqueur. How much fruit liqueur can I bring back in? And he says something to me that just makes so little sense that I can't contextualize it and I can't figure out what to say. So I say, what? And he says, I said, did you try to talk your cousin out of getting married? And then I realize he's making a joke with me. And I said, oh no, we like the person they married. I didn't mention that she was marrying a woman because I was not sure how that would fly.
That might be a whole other political thing to get into.
So I said, no, we really like the person she's marrying. And he said, well, did you at least offer to drive her away and like have her escape?
Buddy, what is this? What kind of country?
And I was like, no, but next time I will. And he's like, okay, welcome home.
You
don't really fit the profile, though.
Probably not, but I always think I do.
When I went to London, and then
You went to London?
When I went there,
did you see London and France?
I did. So when I was there, when I talked to the UK border people, or
the Bobby
whatever,
sock.
when I'm talking to them, they started asking me a lot of questions, and I went with my buddy Bob Blanken, and he like sailed through, and then when we like, you traveling with somebody, I said yes, my friend Bob, and they're like, where's he? I'm like I don't know, he's somewhere around here, and they're like, what are you doing while you're here? And I said, well, I figure I'll see a lot of the sights, and I'll see. And I started listening. Yeah, what else are you going to see? And I'm like, oh, this is. I said, I'm also going to take in some there. What show are you going to see? And I'm like, and they just kept asking me question after question.
You're a little browner looking.
And then at one point, he goes, I mean, I'm letting you into the country, but what about this? And I'm like, oh, okay, like. And I talked to the guy, and when I got past it, Bob was looking at me, and he's like, I didn't think they were going to let you in. They were talking to you so long. It's like they asked me 3 questions. They asked me if I was traveling with somebody, where I was staying, and like the business or pleasure kind of thing.
Well, when I flew over there, I flew WOW Air, which is a very strange but ultimately wonderful airline. And they change, everything goes through Reykjavik. So I changed in Reykjavik and then flew from Reykjavik to Frankfurt, Germany. And when I got my bag in Frankfurt, I didn't even go through passport control.
Did you do it in Reykjavik?
Did I what?
Did you do it in Reykjavik?
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, that makes sense.
But Reykjavik, I don't think is technically part of the EU, so I didn't really understand that.
I have no idea. It's a good point.
All right, well, moving on.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I derailed us.
Star Wars.
Nothing but Star Wars.
I fucking love The Last Jedi. I love it. I unabashedly love it. I unabashedly loved The Force Awakens.
But you love this more?
I got Rogue One issues. But I unabashedly love... I don't know. I think the thing is, I might still like Force Awakens more. I think The Last Jedi might, in a vacuum, be a better movie and a more interesting movie. But Force Awakens, I can't separate the emotion I have about Star Wars with the actual Star Wars films. Mm-hmm. And I brought a lot more emotion to Force Awakens. Like, Star Wars is back. Oh, not only is it back, but it's good. They didn't prequel us. And also, I had saw it. I was unemployed at the time, so I went back home to New York, as you do. And I saw it with the friends that I'd seen all the other Star Wars movies with. And there was just a lot emotionally going on with it. And I also don't think you should have to separate that emotion from these viewing experiences necessarily, particularly something like Star Wars that is so ingrained into our DNA. So in a vacuum, I think The Last Jedi might be a better movie, but my heart is still always with Force Awakens, if that makes any sense. But I thought The Last Jedi was great. I thought they did things to subvert Star Wars and the franchise in a way that none of the other films do. Particularly, it fulfilled the thing I kind of hoped it would do, where after Force Awakens came out, everyone said, well, it's just the same as the originals. Like, it's following the same structure and the same beats, and there's nothing. And I said, but they brought it back, they introduced these new people, and in order to tear something down, I bet you they felt the need to rebuild it and build it good and bring us back.
Tear it down, let it burn, get rid of the past.
And then this movie does just that. And it did the thing that I hoped it would do, which was kind of reinvent the franchise or try new things or swing for the fences in different ways. And for me, that's what The Last Jedi did. I think it's a ton of fun. There are some amazingly memorable sequences. The scene in Snoke's throne room is phenomenal. And we're going to get into spoilers here. Because let me just also say this. I'm running into a lot of people. I overheard some people at work because now the common folk are catching up on the movie. And
they've had a few days off to see a Star Wars.
Yeah.
I hadn't realized you'd been knighted. You and Ringo.
I mean, Sean and I were the obsessives. We're there, like... I was upset that we were at like the 8 o'clock show and not the 7 o'clock show, But
3D or 2D?
No, 2D, always 2D. So
the way George Lucas intended.
So they were, and here's where we'll get into a little spoiler stuff. They were bitching about how Snoke dies, which I think is a great scene. I think it's that whole sequence is great. And I was listening to it and I'm like, fuck. You don't give a shit about Snoke. You didn't leave Force Awakens all pumped up about Snoke. Like, don't give me this bullshit. You're upset. No, well, they set up this villain. No, the villain is Kylo Ren. That's who they set up. That's who it is. That's the way it should be. Fuck you. Alex, what do you think of Star Wars?
You're a little punch drunk. You just...
First of all, I mostly agree with you. I think there are some serious flaws with The Last Jedi, and yet I think it's a perfect movie.
Nice.
Okay.
Why
I was the ice foxes.
The crystal critters?
Yeah.
I thought they were charming. I liked them better than whatever those things were on that other planet. I have a...
The Porgs? You didn't like the Porgs?
Yeah, whatever.
Sorry, sidebar. Have you been tracking... Do you follow Damon Lindelof on Instagram?
No.
He's obsessed with the nuns, and all he's been doing is Instagramming photoshopped movie posters and scenes from movies with the nuns from the planet on there. It's amazing. Yeah.
There were some little things that I have problems with in the movie that I wish had been done differently or had been done better. And there are a couple of like weird continuity things that just make no sense whatsoever.
From The Force Awakens or within the movie?
Within the movie, within The Last Jedi. And I was saying this on Twitter to Will earlier today. I'm not sure that there should be dick jokes in a Star Wars movie. And there's a dick joke in The Last Jedi. But it is such an amazing swashbuckling ride. And even though it's 2.5 hours and I wish it had been shorter, especially like there's some stuff in the first 45 minutes which really just lags, it comes together so well in the last 30 or 35 minutes.
What I find most fascinating, now that Rian Johnson, the cat's out of the bag, the movie's out, he's been able to talk about it, he's claiming, and what he's saying is that JJ and Kasdan went off and they made their Force Awakens, and then they said, okay, and they handed him a shit burger of a sandwich, though, because they're like, go here, Rey's parentage, Luke Skywalker, all these big gas questions, Snoke, Kylo Ren, here you go, Ryan, figure it out. And he claims that there isn't some sort of 3-movie plotted out arc for this film. You're giving me a knowing look, but his claim is that like they said, go write your film, and now there's so much of this movie that upends what they set up in The Force Awakens, almost to the point where when you put the movie side by side, some of the character, especially the Rey stuff, doesn't track well because it's a little bewildering because she is set up as another chosen one that's getting these Force prophecies and the lightsaber is drawn to her and this, that, and the other. And then in this movie, we're like, no, you're nothing. You're no one. And so that
which
disconnect,
I love.
Yes, but it also makes a very jarring experience coming out of The Force Awakens. And I feel like Rian Johnson just like, JJ, here you go, game set, go figure this out now.
Well, I think that's actually I don't want to get political about this, but I think that it's a very, very strangely political movie considering that it was
it's extremely
finished a year ago when, you couldn't have predicted all the shit that's gone down in the past year. But the message that you don't have to be royalty. Yeah. You can be anyone and rise up and spark the flame.
There's that little great coda at the end that kind of brings all that. And when they cut to that coda at the end and I realized that's what that was going to be, At first, I'm like, why are we back here? What's going to happen? And then I thought they brought that home with that theme that fit into the greater theme of the film in a beautiful way. Anakin was a...
It was something
Anakin was
interesting
just a slave boy with a lot of metachlorians.
You know what? There's something that I picked up on the second viewing of the movie is when they're in Snoke's throne room, he tells Kylo, "I assume the Force would bring forth someone to balance you out, but I always assumed it was Skywalker." Basically, the same way that Anakin, and you can retcon this a little bit, the whole bullshit with his like virgin birth, that like he was birthed by the Force. In a way, you could say Rey was as well, that the Force basically brought her up and out and made her sensitive, made the lightsaber get drawn to her, not because she's Skywalker, not because she's special, but because the Force needs someone as a balancing, countervailing pressure against Kylo Ren. So, like, it literally can come out of nowhere. The other thing I took out of this movie is I think the third movie is basically going to become... the Resistance is now just going to be a bunch of child soldiers. It's going to be like Rwanda. Where they're just going to get a bunch of
Rwanda in space.
A bunch of freed child slaves armed with blasters. It's going to be, what was that movie?
Beasts of No Nation?
Yeah, that's the one.
I'm assuming there's going to be a little bit of a time jump. Because I'm assuming that the Resistance will have had to have built... Because right now the Resistance can fit on the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
So I'm assuming there's going to have to be a little bit of a time jump. Also...
it was like a 3-year time jump between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
And there's a big 3 years?
It's supposed to be 3 years.
Han is frozen in carbonite for 3 years?
It's several years. There's a lot of books that fit in between those two movies.
I buy
and
that.
And Shadows of the Empire, which is canon.
I buy that there's 3 years between A New Hope and Empire. I don't buy that Han is frozen. It took him 3 years to figure out a plan to rescue Han.
He had to build a lightsaber. He had to find Kyber crystals, okay?
Anyway, what was I getting to?
It's a good movie.
No, but what I want to say was...
Yeah.
Well,
the other smart thing this movie does is it says, like, you think Snoke is so important, like, we're going to yada, yada, yada that. We're just like, he's done, he's out of the picture. He's a thing. Who gives a shit about who he is?
I love that Kylo's now in charge because he's kind of this petulant child. Oh, he's in charge.
He's a Trump kid. He's Donald Jr.
Who's Hux in charge? By the way, most improved character from Force Awakens is Hux.
Hugs.
Because they figured out what to do with him, and it's to make him like a fascist buffoon.
Right.
Where in the first one, it's a lot of like, are we supposed to take this guy seriously? In this one, the very first scene, we're like, oh no, we don't take this guy seriously. Poe's not taking this guy seriously.
But he gives Kylo Ren that look at the end of the movie where you're like, he's gunning for him.
Yeah, because Hux he almost kills him in this movie. Yeah, there's a moment where he goes to take out his blaster, and then Kylo Ren wakes up and he puts the blast back. He's like, oh, what happened?
Yeah. Well, also, the things that I love about this movie are that it really has this message that it doesn't matter, and you can rise up and you can defeat forces that seem so much greater than you.
Can you? Though?
Yeah, I think you can. I think we will.
Can we talk about who the real hero of the movie is, though?
Bob Mueller?
No, the real hero of the movie is the dude who's landed on an alien planet, grabs a piece of the ground, puts it in his mouth to taste the alien soil, and goes, salt.
Which I thought was blood from the guy who was from the commander. And I was like, why is he tasting his blood?
I saw someone tweet. It said, like, this guy is the most psychotic man in any Star Wars movie. Why is he tasting the planet? Does he go around and taste planets all?
He's licking mushrooms.
Can we talk about the other thing? The weird moment in the film when Luke milks that weird creature.
Which apparently was a 3/4 of a ton practical model that had to be airlifted to the island, and it had a functioning nipple.
And let me say this about that creature.
That's a great band name, by the way. Functioning Nipple.
I think they played the Troob last night.
When he melts that creature, the thing about that is, it's not like a cow with things standing up. It's sitting there almost humanoid-like, just like waiting to be melted by Luke.
It looked pornographic when it first appeared.
And the look that Luke gives her is just like, ooh, you want some?
When he's drinking that blue milk that he loved from Tatooine. I want to say one other thing. Carrie Fisher.
Yeah. Who?
Oh, it sucks so bad that we don't have Princess Leia, because clearly...
General Leia.
Yeah, that's right. That she was going to play a bigger role even into the next one. And her son is the villain of this. What do you think they do? Because my speculation is, because everyone's like, oh, they're going to have to kill her. They're going to have to kill her. I don't think you kill...
General Organa has returned to Alderaan 2.
I assume that we're going to, like, in the crawl, like, she's at some base somewhere, and there'll be, like, a line of dialogue at some point, like, orders have come in from General Leia, and we're just not going to deal with them. Because I think it's in weird taste to kill her off camera suddenly.
You could start the movie at, like, a funeral pyre or something. Like, they could, like... do something where she's already, like, General Organa has succumbed to space AIDS.
or reuse old dialogue of hers and then just shoot her from the back.
They just take dialogue from Postcards from the Edge and they just put it on a...
But they've said that they're not going to, like, do, like, a Tarkin thing where they CG or anything.
Well, when JJ's once he gets his hands on those tools, she'll be acting alongside Frank Sinatra and Clark Gable before that movie's done.
It really,
General
the
Sinatra.
Leia stuff is so powerful in the film, and there is that, you know, the second viewing I was able to concentrate more on Leia because almost every time in the first viewing I'm like, oh my God, like Carrie Fisher's gone. And the second viewing I was able to more listen to everything. And in the second viewing you really see how she is to Poe what Luke is to Rey in this movie. And there's the great scene between her and Luke. And while I was watching it the first time, I'm sitting there thinking, did they know? Did they know she was going to die? Because it's all about, like,
well, it's supposed to be the Luke send-off.
The thing is, but because, and we might have realized it was the Luke send-off if we didn't have this extra baggage of knowing she was gone.
Can I just tell you what I'm excited about this year? Circling back a little bit. It's an entire movie about Han Solo finding out how he got those dice. Because you know that is going to be a major plot point in Solo, a Ron Howard film.
When does that come out?
Christmas, probably.
Okay.
Same thing. They're going to just, they know they got
I thought it was Christmas, but then I saw some other thing that was like in the summer. I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
Nah. Ron Howard
I have to say, though, the most important thing about Star Wars, Laura Dern with purple hair.
Yes.
Laura Dern with purple hair.
Something I did not know I needed in my life.
Yeah, and yet, now you can't live without it.
And also interesting that the interpretation of that character, the conceptualization of that character as this military commander, but so calm and so focused and so no nonsense.
Right.
It was just something we had never seen before, because the military commanders are always, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and of course, it's a female commander who's more interested in getting the job done than in glory.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, there you go. Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Go see it.
If you haven't seen it, why did you listen to this segment? Moving on. So as I said before, I have only myself to blame. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I am so sorry I did this to all of us. 2016 was such a terrible garbage fire of a year. Trump was elected. Everyone cool died. It was so terrible that on our last episode of the last year, I couldn't make it the enemy. It was too obvious. It would have been a hack joke to do. Like, we know 2016 sucks. So instead, I looked ahead and said 2017 would be the enemy. That things would only get worse, and guess what? It did. The reality of Trump being in charge was much worse than we speculated. All conventional norms in the world, from the Super Bowl to the Oscars, the way news is delivered, everything just went out the window. Shit got too crazy. The people we love and respected, they didn't die. Instead, they all became sexual assaulting monsters, which is much worse. I would much rather Kevin Spacey be dead, and then I can watch The Usual Suspects in peace. And you know what? I did this to us. I put this out in the universe. I don't usually believe in shit like that if I put too much negative vibes, negative shit's gonna happen. But this is proof that I did this. I made 2017 the shit show it was, because that is my power and the power of this podcast. And that is why I, Will Link, are this week's enemy of the podcast. Go fuck myself. How do I atone for this? Alex, how do I atone for my sins?
I think we have to take a radically grateful attitude towards the things that are still good and build upon them and be the spark that lights the rebellion that burns this shit down.
But just to be safe, we're throwing you in the volcano. We have to have a peace
And if we can find a virgin in Los Angeles, we'll throw her in too.
Get on that christianmingle.com. We'll find one.
Oh dear.
So, we've already kind of discussed this. Alex, you think 2018 will be better?
I do.
I do too, actually.
I
All
think
I heard is that the federal government is just checking things out of Manzanar to see what the quality is, how some of those bugs have held up.
I think the real problem is a bunch of us knew that things would be really shitty in 2017, but most people didn't. And it took all of the stupid, insane stuff that happened.
Maybe he won't be
to
so
convince
bad.
them.
Maybe he'll just be like a Republican. They'll rein him in.
Yeah, maybe he'll become presidential at some point. Maybe he'll stop tweeting. Maybe he won't care about repealing Obamacare and putting people to death. No. This is what he wants. So now that we know, we can actively fight against it.
Okay,
Sounds good.
that's fair to me.
So is that our benediction for the year?
Sean, do you got any...
Just taking it day by day.
Okay,
I've become a lot more stoic in my old age.
well then let's end on a...
It's the 12-step program for 2018.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot change the things.
Let's end like we always do on a weird note.
With a song?
No.
Oh.
We'll meet again.
And don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
A frat party?
Yeah, I was just thinking that when I hear the bombs from North Korea on the way, and I realize there's nowhere for me to go, I feel like I'm just going to play that song on a loop until it's all over.
You won't hear
I'm
the
going to
bombs.
just watch the beginning of Miracle Mile over and over again.
Or the scene from Miracle Mile, which...
It's,
Miracle Mile is
you
the
don't know
movie.
this movie?
Oh, it's such a great
Is
movie.
that the one that, what's his name, made after his fiance died? No, that was Moonlight Mile. Never mind.
No, it's the one with Anthony Edwards with hair. And he plays this musician. He meets the girl of his dreams at Johnny's on Fairfax.
Oh.
And then most of it takes place in real time because he gets this phone call that's going to a 213 number instead of a 714 number
Okay.
from a guy in one of the missile silos who says, Russia just hit us. We've launched back with everything they have. You have 35 minutes.
This is a
No!
good movie.
Oh, it's a fantastic movie.
Is it?
Yes.
It's good. It's worth seeing. I mean, it's not like Citizen Kane, but
What?
it's a fun movie. It's good.
Miracle Mile. All right, a frat party.
It's not.
Maryland.
It's not The Last Jedi, but it's better than the prequels.
Okay.
At a frat party in Maryland, it was broken up due to a noise complaint. But when the cops showed up, there was so much alcohol in the air around them. The air registered a .01 on the breathalyzer. In order for this to happen, they say there needed to be 1.2 gallons of liquor in the air at that time. That's a lot of liquor to be floating in the air.
And this is a metaphor for 2017. How?
They say that one of the reasons, though, that they had covered all the windows with like garbage bags.
So they were hotboxing it with booze.
No, that was an unintended consequence. They were trying. They didn't want the cops to be able to
No, but what I'm
look
saying is
into.
no, not intentionally, but because they did that, they essentially hotboxed the house out of open bottles and burps and farts.
That's a lot of. I didn't think about the burps and farts.
Well, there's particulates. So, hashtag New Year's Eve goals.
How much more alcoholic does the air have to be where if you light a match, the whole thing will go up?
Tragedy in Maryland tonight.
That's a good question.
If anyone here
I
is
would
a scientist,
Probably a lot more.
Yeah, I would
guess
guess
yeah.
a lot, but I wouldn't roll
Chance
Han
it-
Solo's dice on that.
No.
I was never a frat guy.
You really?
Because I went to an art school
with no fraternities.
and even if I had gone to a school with fraternity, there's no way in hell I would have joined a fraternity.
They didn't have Gamma Epsilon Kubrick?
Oh,
KEK or GAK.
we're not frat people.
No, I
never understood
all 4 years
that,
of college. I never went to one frat. I never stepped foot in a frat house, and the only time I ever stepped foot in a sorority was because I was with my friend and his girlfriend was in a sorority. We had to go in there to go pick her up for something.
It wasn't because it was a hilarious 80s movie and you were on a panty raid?
Nope. We were drilling holes in the ceiling and the walls.
Alex.
I never went to a frat party either.
I didn't think so.
So we were not frat people.
I'm trying to think. I actually do think I went to a frat party at another school once
Like
while
NYU or
visiting a
something?
friend in Philadelphia.
Okay. I went to co-op parties, but not like frat parties.
And I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have to be a vegan to get into a co-op party?
Some, yes.
Okay.
And on that note,
Those
Alex,
co-ops are weird.
thank you so much for coming back on the show for a record. I think it's 6.
We'll look it up.
We'll look it up. I should have looked it up at that time. But it's like...
Let's say 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next year will be like for his 10th appearance.
Yeah, exactly.
One more time, tell the people where they can find out about you and tell me who you are.
So tellmewhoyouarepodcast.com, and you can also find out other things about me at my website, which has been updated in the last year, alexmstein.com.
And you're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter at ColdfootFilms, and I'm on Instagram, but I never post on Instagram because I'm not as cool as the cool kids.
Sean.
You can find me at all forms of social media at the Sean David. So do so.
Including Instagram because you're a cool kid.
I am a very cool kid with the coolest of Instagram.
Do you live stream on Instagram?
No, I just put up artsy pictures.
Oh,
on
excellent.
Instagram. Yeah.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real Will Link.
One of these years, I'm going to stop recording right as you take that long breath.
I'm going to be doing Sit and Spin at
when?
the Comedy Central stage on January 18th.
Oh, I have something to plug. I forgot.
Oh, sorry, we're past you next year. You come back next
Is it on January 18th?
No, it's on January 28th.
What is it?
I am doing a duet show with Amy Englehart, the lovely and talented Amy
How
Englehart.
did you get her? How'd you book her?
I woke her up and said, hey, let's do this. And we will be doing a show called He Said, She Sang, where I'm going to tell stories and she's going to sing songs at the Open Space on January 28th.
That sounds great.
Oh, nice. That does sound great. Go to that, everyone.
Okay.
Next week, no guest.
Just us.
It's just us, and we're going to do something that, oddly enough, we've never done on the show.
Have we never done our top
We've never done a standalone episode where you and I did our top 10 movies of the year.
We probably should have ended the year with it, but a lot of these films haven't really made their way out to the... We're going to let people catch up on some of the posts and the fandom
It's still
threads.
going to be out before the post. Why is the post coming out January 12th?
So that's also when Phantom Thread opens nationwide.
I don't know, but Phantom Thread, that's like an artsy thing.
It's so that we can feel better about living in Los Angeles or New York.
Yeah, I do. I'm glad I could see everything the second it comes out.
Post seems like it should have got a wide release right away. It's Spielberg.
Yeah.
And I love the Post, by the way. That'll be on my list. Spoiler alert.
Huh.
I thought it was excellent. Yeah, so we're going to be doing that.
Is that the New York Post?
Yeah, it's all...
Yeah.
The
Ford
New
to
York
City
Post.
drop dead.
The Iowa Post Register.
All right, so...
For everyone, all of our listeners. That's it. It's another year.
yeah.
Another year in the can.
Congratulations, listeners.
Thank you for surviving another year of our nonsense. Alex, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
For the Will Sean Podcast, I'm Sean David.
I'm willing.
And we're finished for another year.
We're finished.